The sky over Tel Aviv didn't just light up, it broke apart. What looked like a single incoming missile suddenly split mid-air, fragmenting into a cascade of fire. Dozens of glowing objects scattered across the night, each one falling independently. Not one target, not one interception. A swarm. Sirens screamed, interceptors launched. Bright arcs raced upward, colliding with incoming threats. But then something unusual happened. More impacts followed. What should have been one clean interception turned into scattered explosions across multiple neighborhoods, seconds apart, unpredictable, disorienting. This wasn't a simple breach. This was engineered saturation, because these weren't conventional warheads. They were cluster payloads, designed to split mid-flight, releasing multiple submunitions, each becoming its own independent threat. One missile became many. And in that moment, the rules changed. Civilians ran for shelters that suddenly felt too far away. The familiar rhythm of defense, detect, intercept, neutralize, began to strain under something far more complex. Early reports confirmed casualties, not mass destruction. Something more unsettling, proof that even advanced defenses can be stretched. So why now? Why introduce a weapon designed not just to strike, but to complicate the entire system? Just hours earlier, high-level Iranian figures had purportedly been eliminated in precision strikes, a direct hit on leadership. This was the response. But not just retaliation, evolution. Iran didn't just fire back, it changed the equation. Hundreds of missiles and drones have already been launched in this conflict. But those numbers no longer tell the full story, because now every incoming object can multiply. One becomes 10, 10 become dozens. And suddenly, defense isn't about stopping missiles, it's about surviving overload. And tonight, for a brief moment, the system bent, not broken, not failed, but pushed just close enough to reveal something critical. The margin for error is shrinking. And if that margin disappears, the question won't be if something gets through, but how much? The real danger isn't the explosion, you see. It's the ones the system can't process fast enough. At high altitude, the missile doesn't strike immediately. Instead, it opens. Inside, dozens of submunitions. Within seconds, one incoming threat becomes a multi-directional cascade, each fragment with its own trajectory, speed, and impact point. And here's the problem. Missile defense systems are built on prediction. Track the object, calculate its path, destroy it. But cluster payloads destroy predictability. The moment the warhead splits, radar systems must suddenly track multiple independent objects simultaneously, each requiring prioritization. And time? Seconds. Now scale that up. Multiple missiles, multiple fragmentation events, dozens, sometimes hundreds, of targets appearing almost instantly. This is what's known as saturation pressure. Even with a 90% interception success rate, the math turns dangerous. Because if one missile becomes 20, 10% leakage becomes multiple impacts. 4. That's why this tactic matters. It's not about overwhelming strength, it's about forcing decision overload. Because in modern warfare, you don't always need to break the system. You just need to create a moment where it hesitates. And once hesitation appears, even for seconds, that's where damage begins. This isn't just a strike anymore, it's a stress test. Israel's defense isn't one system. It's layered. Iron Dome, David's Sling, Arrow, each designed for different threats, each dependent on perfect coordination. But cluster munitions disrupt that coordination. A missile tracked at high altitude suddenly fragments, forcing responsibility to shift between systems in seconds. And that creates friction. Who intercepts what? How many interceptors are used? What gets prioritized? Because here's the hidden reality. Interceptors are finite. Each one costs thousands, sometimes millions. Each battery has limits, and Iran understands this. 4. This becomes a cost war. Cheap drones, mass-produced missiles, against expensive interceptors. Over time, that imbalance matters. Because no system is designed to operate at peak intensity forever. Fatigue sets in. Resources thin out. Decision windows shrink. And eventually, the system stops optimizing. It starts reacting. And that's the moment when breakthrough becomes possible. Now the battlefield expands. Because this isn't staying contained. This is no longer just Iran and Israel. It's a network. Hezbollah in the north, Gaza in the south, militias across Iraq and Syria. And now a precedent has been set. Advanced weapons and direct exchange. That shifts global calculations because escalation spreads through connections. And there's one critical vulnerability: energy. A major portion of the world's oil flows through a narrow corridor within reach of this conflict. Any disruption there impacts everything: fuel, inflation, supply chains, markets. And markets react instantly. This is now a global pressure system. And the biggest risk? Not intentional escalation, miscalculation, one wrong strike, one misread signal, and containment disappears. And now everything comes down to this: endurance. This is no longer about who strikes harder. It's about who can sustain pressure longer, militarily, economically, psychologically. Because modern conflict doesn't always end in a single learning moment. It stretches systems until something gives. And that breaking point, often subtle, a delay, a gap, a miscalculation, and once pressure crosses that threshold, effects cascade, military, economic, political, strategic, and decisions accelerate. But faster decisions aren't always better ones. Time is now the most critical factor. Every hour without de-escalation increases risk. Every new tactic reduces control. So the real question is no longer what just happened. It's this. Are we watching a contained conflict? Or the early stages of something that is learning how to expand? Because once escalation becomes adaptive, it rarely stays limited. If you want analysis that goes beyond headlines, subscribe, stay informed, and keep watching. Because in moments like this, understanding the pattern is everything. This is where systems begin to strain, not collapse strain. Modern cities rely on stability, power, communication, emergency response. But repeated disruption chips away at that stability, piece by piece, sirens, interruptions, uncertainty. And gradually normal life fractures, hospitals overload, response times slow, people fatigue, and then comes psychological pressure, constant alerts, interrupted sleep, unpredictable danger that changes behavior, slower reactions, more mistakes. At the same time, decision makers face pressure too, and under pressure, systems don't fail instantly, they degrade. Small delays, minor errors, but in high-speed conflict, seconds matter. And when small failures align, they become big ones. It happened in the dark. No warning, no sirens, no time to react. Just a flash in the sky above Tehran. And then, silence. Within minutes, whispers began spreading through military channels, intelligence networks, and finally, across the world, Ali Larijani may be dead. Not just a politician, not just a strategist, but the man sitting at the center of Iran's entire security architecture, the bridge between nuclear policy, military command, and regime survival. And if the reports are true, this wasn't just an airstrike. This was a message. Because this wasn't the first strike, and it won't be the last. Over the past weeks, something unprecedented has been unfolding. A silent dismantling of Iran's leadership layer by layer. First, the unthinkable. The removal of figures once considered untouchable. Then, the generals. Then, the intelligence chiefs. And now, possibly the final piece holding the system together. But here's the question. No one is asking loudly enough, how did Israel get this close, this deep inside Iran? Because this level of precision doesn't just come from satellites or drones. It suggests something far more dangerous. Infiltration, compromise, or worse, a system already beginning to crack from within. And if Larijani is truly gone, then Iran hasn't just lost a leader. It may have lost control of its own command structure, which raises a terrifying possibility. What happens when a nuclear-capable state starts losing its chain of command in real time? Because what comes next won't stay contained. To understand why this changes everything, you have to understand who Ali Larijani really was. He wasn't just another name in Iran's leadership circle. He was the system's coordinator. As head of the Supreme National Security Council, Larijani wasn't on the battlefield. He controlled the battlefield. Every major decision passed through him. Military responses, nuclear negotiations, strategic alliances, internal security crackdowns. He was the link between ideology and execution. While generals commanded troops, Larijani decided when and why those troops moved. Think of him as the operating system behind Iran's power structure. Remove a general, the army still fights. Remove a politician, the state still functions. But remove the coordinator, and suddenly decisions slow, confusion spreads, and factions begin competing for control. And that's exactly where things get dangerous, because Iran's system isn't designed for sudden leadership vacuums. It's designed for control, rigid, centralized, layered. And now, those layers are being peeled away one by one. But the real question isn't just who Larijani was, it's how he was found. Because locating someone at that level requires real-time intelligence, deep surveillance, penetration, or assets inside the system itself, which means this strike may reveal something even more alarming than his death. Iran's security network may already be compromised. The attack itself was fast, surgical, precise. According to early reports, the strike hit a secured zone near Tehran. an area believed to be heavily monitored and defended. This wasn't a random missile. This was targeted. The kind of operation that requires exact location tracking, movement prediction, and perfect timing. No second chances. And yet, it worked. Which suggests this wasn't just a military strike, it was an intelligence victory. Because air defenses didn't stop it. Early warnings didn't prevent it. Evacuation protocols didn't activate in time. It was as if the system didn't see it coming, or worse, couldn't. And that raises a chilling possibility that the strike wasn't just launched from the outside, but enabled from within. Because historically, operations like this rely on embedded assets, cyber infiltration, signal interception, or internal leaks. And if even part of that is true, then this war isn't just being fought with missiles, it's being fought inside Iran's own infrastructure, inside its communications, inside its decision-making networks, which means every move Iran makes from here could already be known in advance. This didn't start with Larijani, it started weeks ago, one strike at a time. First, symbolic targets, then operational commanders, then senior military leadership, each step carefully calculated, each escalation testing Iran's response. And each time, the response came, but not enough to stop what was coming next, because this wasn't chaos. This was a ladder, a deliberate climb towards something bigger. Let's break it down. Step 1, disrupt outer defenses. Step 2, eliminate field commanders. Step 3, target strategic planners. Step 4, remove central coordinators. And now we may be entering the final stage, system destabilization. Because once coordination collapses, something else begins. Internal fragmentation. Different factions within Iran's leadership may now compete for control, disagree on retaliation, act independently. And that's when wars become unpredictable, because a unified state is dangerous, but a fractured one is uncontrollable. What happens in Tehran doesn't stay in Tehran, because Iran isn't just a country in this conflict. It's a mihwar of influence stretching across the region, from Lebanon to Iraq to the Gulf, and now that entire network is on edge. Oil markets are already reacting, because one choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, controls nearly 20% of global oil supply. If instability spreads, prices don't just rise, they spike. And when energy spikes, everything follows. Inflation, supply chain disruption, economic instability. Meanwhile, global powers are watching closely. The United States is already involved. Allies are divided, some preparing for escalation, others trying to contain it. But here's the problem. Containment only works when both sides are predictable. And right now, nothing about this situation is predictable. If Ali Larijani is truly gone, then this moment may be remembered as more than just another strike. It may be remembered as the nuktat at-tahawul, the turning point. Because wars aren't defined by their loudest explosions. They're defined by the moments systems begin to fail. And this feels like one of those moments, a system losing its coordinators, a chain of command under pressure, a leadership structure being tested in real time. But the most dangerous phase isn't the strike itself, it's what comes after. Because now Iran faces a decision: respond with force and risk full-scale war, or hesitate and risk appearing weakened internally. Both paths carry consequences, and both paths move the region closer to something larger, because once escalation crosses a certain threshold, it doesn't reverse easily, it accelerates. And that's where time becomes the most critical factor. Every hour without clarity, every delay in response, every internal disagreement adds pressure. And pressure, in systems like this, doesn't just build, it breaks things. So the real question isn't whether this war will escalate, it's how fast. Because if the pattern we've seen continues, then this isn't the end of the escalation ladder, it's the beginning of its final phase. And when that phase arrives, it won't just reshape Iran, it could reshape the entire region, maybe even the world. If you want to understand what happens next, not days later, but as it unfolds in real time, subscribe now, because the next move could change everything.